Third down and 20.
The older wide receivers, what are we doing with them? We're talking Julio Jones, Adam Thielen, Jarvis Landry, like those kind of guys. What are we doing with those guys?
So I think it's hard. I was gonna say I think it's hard to just answer that straight up because I feel with receivers like that, it really all comes down ultimately to the position that your team is in. Whether you believe that you can really win a championship this year, if you think, hey, I'm decent, but I'm not like the top contender level, or just if you're rebuilding in general. Because I think all three of those are different approaches, with probably the latter two being more similar. Veteran receivers like those. First off, if you're a rebuilding team, I feel like this should kind of just be common knowledge, but some rebuilding teams just keep them. You should trade those receivers like that to contenders and try to just pick up picks or young players with some value. If you're a contender, I understand trying to move off of that older receiver, but at the same time, like if you think you can win it all, like that's ultimately what matters at the end of the day. Like, okay, who cares if they have to die on your team? Like, if they help you win a chip, it's worth it.
I do have one thing I want to say on this because I think it does depend on the player. So if you have a player, because you could use the same argument for Adam Thielen at the end of 2 seasons ago, like and then this year he has a wide receiver 1 year, right? So I think it does depend on a couple of factors. One, are they actually going to play for like another 2 or 3 seasons? Because, yeah, you can assume that a lot of guys' value will go down. But if you have a dude that has a potential to be an Adam Thielen where he's going to play for another 3 seasons and he could be playing at a wide receiver 1 level, well, then it might not be worth selling low even if you're a rebuilding team. Because you could just wait until halfway through the season with a couple of injuries, and then all of a sudden you might be able to net a first-round pick for a guy that you couldn't even sniff a first-round pick for during like all the rookie hype and stuff. So I think that is one thing. So like when we're looking at some of these players that we listed, I think that Julio Jones, Adam Thielen, and Landry would be the only guy that I realistically could see having that bounce-back-esque wide receiver 1 year out of that group. I think Julio Jones and Adam Thielen could be really good, but most owners would say like, oh, well, they're just so old, I'm not going to pay for it. I think that I also think the other thing is that Landry has that play style that doesn't necessarily rely on elite athleticism to get catches. You know, he's almost more of like an advanced slot than he is like that true alpha dog number 1 receiver like a Julio Jones. So I think that is the one thing I would consider before just saying, oh, I'm selling everyone. Like, hey, if they have a legit chance of increasing their price in a couple of months, you might as well wait and just go for the risk.
I agree with Landry. I lump OBJ in that too with the Browns. I'm Baker Truther, I think, at this point. So those would be guys I do like. But if I'm able to, like, I just checked Keep Trade Cut. It's the crowdsourced one. So it gives you a general idea of what people are likely accepting and stuff. A 2023 late first, what's assumed to be a late first for these guys, which is what it says they're roughly worth. Like, if I could get that 2023 first for any of those guys, I think I'm probably shipping them off.
I've tried. It's almost.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting for him.
Julio would be the tough one. He was like the lower one that was listed of those guys. So
I think even with Thielen too, just because Justin Jefferson's there, whether or not Adam Thielen is actually the wide receiver 1 or will get more targets doesn't matter anymore because Justin Jefferson is there, and that narrative has already been pushed and is baked into people's minds, which is then baked into the price.
True. I think we get a little too caught up in our league. Like, Frank, you're in multiple different leagues, but I feel like our league does like to hoard picks more than most other leagues. Like we've seen in the league that we're currently in, people are kind of letting picks fly left and right.
I also think they have a lot of newer dynasty players, though, and I think that's a thing that a lot of newer dynasty players do is that they'll say, because one of the things they'll do is that they'll go into the Dynasty subreddit and see everyone say, oh, well, picks are overvalued. But then they'll go around and undersell their pick. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Where it's like because they see a bunch of people saying that that picks are overvalued, whether they are or they aren't, then they'll go around and say, oh yeah, well, I'll give up my first for Adam Thielen. Now, I'm not saying that always happens. I think that is a trap that people can fall into, though.
Picks are only undervalued until it's draft time, and then they're just overvalued. That's just
I think
how
that picks are
how it
valued. Picks, I think that one thing that people need to understand is that picks are riskier than they expect, but I really don't think that picks are overvalued all that much. A, if they're overvalued, A, just don't trade for them. B, like, dude, if that pick pans out, you're not getting a superstar for cheaper than that. You know, look at Josh Allen, right? If you picked up Josh Allen, especially in a super flex league, if you traded up 2 firsts to get him, you destroyed that trade. You could not fathom trading Josh Allen for anything less than like 4 first-round picks, unless they're insanely high caliber first rounders. So like, I think that people saying that picks are overvalued, like, yeah, maybe some of the more mid to late round picks where you start getting that hit rate starts really going down. But in terms of the top 5 picks, in most years, the top 5 picks have a pretty damn good hit rate, and that hit rate transitions into superstar players for the most part.